Have you ever noticed how some people can change the entire atmosphere of a room, not with words, but with their absence? They don't argue. They don't demand. They simply retreat. And suddenly, everything shifts. The silence becomes loud. The air feels different. People become uneasy, unsure. They start chasing, over-explaining, wondering what went wrong. That right there is power, real power. The kind that doesn't shout, but transforms. Now imagine what would happen if you did the same. If instead of reacting immediately, explaining yourself endlessly, and always showing up emotionally, you chose silence. If you responded to chaos with calm, to provocation with presence, to disrespect with absence. Most people are conditioned to control others through emotional predictability. They press buttons, trigger wounds, and wait for the same familiar reactions. But the moment you stop being so accessible emotionally, physically, psychologically, the structure collapses. Because suddenly, you're no longer a puppet. You're no longer available for their story. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." But let us take it a step further. Everything that causes others to become irritated by your silence reveals their dependence on your reaction. When you become unavailable, when you retreat into stillness, people get desperate. Not because they care, but because they lose the ability to use you. Their frustration isn't rooted in love. It's rooted in loss of control. You've been taught your entire life to say yes quickly, to please others before yourself, to be the peacekeeper, even when it tears you apart inside. And with every impulsive reaction, every automatic reply, every unguarded moment, you bleed energy. Tiny invisible cuts to your own soul, until all that's left is exhaustion. An ache you can't trace. A tiredness that no amount of rest can fix. Why? Because you've made yourself constantly available to people who don't even deserve a minute of your presence. This isn't about arrogance. It's about survival. The world rewards those who preserve their energy and punishes those who hand it out freely. You don't owe your attention to everyone who demands it. You don't owe your emotions to people who provoke just to feel powerful. Your silence is not weakness. It's protection. It's clarity. It's choosing yourself. Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole, authentic, real. That process doesn't begin with performance. It begins with retreat, with becoming unavailable to the roles others have cast you in, with stepping off the stage and walking into your own story. So let me ask you, how much of your life have you lived in reaction to others? How often have you said yes when everything inside you screamed no? How many moments of peace have you traded for the illusion of harmony? Maybe it's time to disappear, not to run, but to return, to choose mystery over explanation, to choose stillness over noise. Because when you stop being available, everything changes. The world can no longer shape you. It is then that you begin to shape the world. Since childhood, you were taught that being kind means being accessible. That answering quickly, showing up emotionally, always saying yes, these are signs of love, loyalty, character. But no one told you that this over-availability would become your prison. No one warned you that what the world praises as virtue often hides deep self-abandonment. You say yes when you mean no. You respond when you're exhausted. You explain yourself when no explanation is needed. You offer energy like it's infinite, and in return, you receive crumbs. And the worst part? You think this is normal. You think that if you keep giving, someone will finally give back. But life doesn't work like that. Not in the real world. Carl Jung spoke of the persona, the mask we wear to gain approval, to be accepted by society. It is that same mask that convinces you that your value lies in how much others need you. You become the helper, the listener, the savior. But behind that role is a person slowly fading. Every message you answer immediately, every favor you say yes to, Every time you silence your truth just to keep the peace, you chip away at yourself. And at the end of the day, you're left wondering why you feel so empty, why you're so drained, why no one sees the real you. I'll tell you why. Because you've become predictable, and everything predictable becomes a tool. Emotional emergency button. People press it when they need comfort, distraction, validation, and then put you back on the shelf until next time. They don't see you. They see what you provide. They don't love you. They love what you do for them. And the irony? The more you offer yourself, the less you're valued. Because nothing abundant is respected. What's always there becomes invisible. And you've become too available. Not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of being left. Fear of disappointing. Fear of rejection. So you stretch yourself thin, hoping someone will notice. But no one does. Or if they do, it's only to ask for more. Jung believed that being too identified with the persona leads to the loss of the true self. And that's what's happening. You're performing connection, performing care, performing presence. But inside, you're screaming. You've made yourself so useful to others that you've become useless to yourself. And here's the most painful truth. When you finally say no, when you finally set a boundary, when you finally go silent, people won't applaud you. They'll accuse you. They'll say you've changed, that you're distant, cold, arrogant. But that's not because you became someone else. It's because you stopped being functional. And when you stop playing the role, the audience gets angry. They don't miss you. They miss the benefits. So now, ask yourself, who deserves your presence? And more importantly, who deserves your absence? Who has earned access to your truth, your time, your energy? Because what you give away for free will never be valued. And the more accessible you are to everyone, the less you belong to yourself. Being available all the time is not kindness. It's surrender. It's leaking your soul drop by drop into hands that don't know what they're reholding. Jung taught that true transformation begins with withdrawal, with the refusal to continue a script that no longer serves your spirit. So what if you stopped performing? What if you reclaimed your energy? What if your silence wasn't absence, but sovereignty? Because when you stop being everyone's yes, you finally say yes to yourself. Carl Jung never believed the psyche was just a machine responding to inputs. To him, the mind was an energy system, and every thought, emotion, and action consumes a part of the energy. The question is, who is directing that energy, your conscious self or the world around you? Every impulsive reaction is a leak. When you defend yourself against petty criticism, when you justify yourself to someone who isn't listening, when you engage in circular arguments, when you feel obligated to respond to every message, every demand, every just checking in, you're pouring out your life force into a void. And then you wonder why you're exhausted, disconnected, fragmented. But this isn't weakness. It's misdirection. Your energy is not gone. It's just been handed over, piece by piece, to people who don't deserve it. Jung said, that which you resist persists. The more you react to what doesn't nourish you, the more it binds you. And here's the terrifying part. Those who drain, you don't even have to try hard. They've learned to push just the right emotional buttons. Not through aggression, but through guilt. Through subtle cues. Through your need to be good, to be liked, to avoid being selfish. That is the invisible cage. Emotional manipulators don't shout. They observe. They find your open wounds and press them softly. They know you'll respond. And as long as you keep responding, they don't need to change. Because you'll do all the emotional labor. Jung believed that a healthy psyche knows how to retain energy within the system. That means knowing when to stay silent, knowing how to leave a conversation unfinished, knowing how to observe a pattern instead of being consumed by it. Power is not in how quickly you respond. It's in how clearly you choose not to. Think of how many hours you've spent reliving arguments in your head, rewriting what you should have said, trying to make someone understand your pain. All that energy gone, poured into ghosts that don't give anything back. Psychic energy is like a force field. When preserved, it becomes presence. You walk into a room, and people feel you without you saying a word. But when scattered, you become reactive, fragile, invisible. And the world has no mercy for those who give in easily. So you need to ask yourself, what triggers your automatic reactions? What makes you explain, justify, or apologize even when you don't need to? That's the leak. That's the doorway through which your energy escapes. And that's where the work begins, not to become cold, but to become clear, to learn discernment, to protect your energy not just from others, but from your own unhealed impulses. Because here's what Jung understood better than most. When you stop reacting, people lose their ability to project onto you. You stop being a mirror for their unacknowledged shadows. And that drives them mad. Your silence forces them to look inward. And not everyone is ready for that. So they lash out. They accuse you of changing. They say you've become distant. But it's not your distance that's the problem. It's their loss of control. Because when you don't react, you don't play the role. And when you don't play the role, the whole performance collapses. This is where real power lies, not in domination, not in resistance, but in the calm refusal to be used as someone else's emotional mirror. And that refusal starts the moment you become aware where energy is going and reclaim it. We live in a world that screams. Opinions shouted, responses immediate, arguments endless. But in all this noise, something powerful is lost silence. Not passive silence, not cowardly withdrawal, but conscious, disciplined, surgical silence. The kind that isn't emptiness, but amplified presence. Carl Jung didn't see silence as absence. He saw it as the space where transformation begins. Because when you stop reacting, you start seeing. You see patterns. You see manipulation. You see yourself. You notice the same people triggering the same emotions. You catch the cycles you've repeated for years. You recognize how many of your responses were not conscious, but rehearsed. Silence breaks that rhythm. And that is dangerous for those who relied on your reactivity to control you. You've seen it before. The panic when you don't reply, the outrage when you don't justify, the guilt trips when you walk away without explaining. But it's not you they're missing. It's the narrative control they lost. As long as you speak, they can twist your words. As long as you argue, they stay in the game. But silence breaks the rules. It forces them to deal with their own chaos, with no script, no stage, no mirror. And that's unbearable for those who are never in relationship with you, only with the role you played. Jung called individuation the process of becoming your true self. And that path requires solitude. Not loneliness, but sacred distance. Space from the noise of expectation. Space to hear your own voice. But don't be naive. This silence comes with a cost. You will lose people. People who only saw you through their projections. People who only valued your usefulness. People who were never listening to your truth, only waiting for their turn to speak. You will be misunderstood, called cold, dismissed as distant. But that discomfort doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you've stopped being predictable, and the predictable are always used. The silent, however, become something else entirely. They become sovereign, selective, grounded. They understand that every word is an investment of energy, and not everyone deserves access to their truth. Silence, when chosen, is not absence, it is resistance. It is the refusal to be pulled into chaos, the refusal to dance for validation, the refusal to trade peace for connection. Jung believed we find truth not in performance, but in withdrawal. And when you master your silence, something shifts. You enter a room and people feel you because you no longer need to be seen. You don't need to explain. You don't need to prove. You just are. And that presence rooted in clarity, not noise, is the rarest form of power. So the next time you feel the urge to respond, pause. The next time someone tries to pull you into drama, resist. The next time you are accused of being distant, smile. Because in your silence, you are reclaiming something sacred yourself. When you stop being available to everyone, something profound begins to unfold. At first, it feels like loss. Silence feels like absence. Solitude feels like punishment. You begin to question yourself. Am I being too harsh? Am I pushing people away? What if I lose them for good? But give it time. Because beneath that silence is something else. A slow clearing. A subtle healing. A space that was once cluttered with noise now begins to breathe. This is not the solitude of abandonment. It is the solitude of full presence, your own. The solitude of someone who no longer trades pieces of themselves for connection. In that space where confusion used to reign, clarity begins to rise. Where anxiety once lived, peace emerges. And where you once needed others to reflect your worth, you begin to feel whole from within. Carl Jung taught that individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, demands a break from the collective. It requires a disidentification from the mask, the persona, the roles you've been trained to perform. That process is not easy. It is not glamorous. It is lonely. But it is real. And it is in this sacred silence that you stop being shaped by external forces and begin shaping your life from the inside out. You stop reacting to the world and start responding from a deeper place. A place that isn't afraid to be misunderstood. A place that no longer needs to explain. You see, those who once valued your availability, your emotional labor, your predictable yes, they're the ones who begin to vanish. Not because you changed into something worse, but because you stopped being what was convenient. And that is liberation. Yes, you will lose people. Yes, it will sting. But what you find in their place is something far more important to you. You will lose shallow attention, but gain depth. You will lose noise, but gain signal. You will lose chaos, but gain sovereignty. And with that sovereignty comes a transformation. You're no longer available for emotional crumbs, for manipulation dressed as love, for relationships built on guilt and exhaustion. You stop performing. You stop proving. You start protecting. You start choosing. You stop just surviving and begin living on your terms. Because when you are no longer available for everything, you become truly valuable, rare, grounded, unforgettable. This is rebirth. Not in the eyes of others, but in your own. A new beginning shaped not by how well you play the game, but by how deeply you know yourself. And in that knowing, you stop chasing love, validation, and approval. You realize that being loved means nothing if it requires abandoning yourself. Because real love, real presence begins with the words, I choose me. And now you must ask, are you willing to be misunderstood in order to be whole? Are you willing to walk alone for a while so that you no longer walk away from yourself? If you are, then write it. Claim it. Live it. I choose my peace. And never forget, the ones who shape the world are not the loudest. They are the clearest, the most self-possessed, the ones who found wholeness in their own silence and never gave it away again.